You've heard the old saying that one bad apple spoils the whole bunch. Well, being in business for over 21 years, I can tell you that that's absolutely true. Over the years, my business partner and I have probably hired and fired and had quit on us over 100 employees. Some of that was our fault. Some of that was bad hires. Some of that was a bad fit. But the end result was that we've learned a thing or two over the last 21 years. We have some employees that have been with us since the day we started the company. We have others that haven't made it through the 90-day period. In this, the third part of a three-part series on hiring, I want to talk about the onboarding process and how you can make your new hire successful in your company.
Welcome to the IT Provider Network. Are you a managed service entrepreneur wanting to take your business to the next level? Do you excel in IT but feel your business management could be better? Join Terry Rossi, where every episode he shares the skills, tips, and tricks that helped him to build a successful worldwide business.
I want to break this into three parts. Before the new hire starts, day one, and the first 90 days. So let's talk about before the new hire starts. Once the offer letter is accepted, you want to get things in motion in your place. In my company, we do this with a standard service template. A standard service template is a template you can apply to a service ticket in ConnectWise, which is just a list of tasks and who needs to accomplish them. So as soon as the offer letter is accepted, we get things moving. We get the offer letter signed. We start any pre-employment tasks. This would be things like getting a voided check for direct deposit. If the employee's in the U.S., we get a W-4 and all the I-9 paperwork going. We order a pre-employment drug test and also a background test. I encourage you to do that if you're not doing it already. It really goes a long way with your customers when you can tell them that you do that for all your employees. We order any needed hardware that we need for the new employee and any licenses that we need. We always need another ConnectWise license. We always need another IT Glue license, for example. And we get a plan together on where they're going to work, what hours they're going to work, and who they're going to report to. In the days before the start date, we start setting the employee up on all of our systems. Again, we use this standard service template to be able to facilitate that. In that template, there's all the technical tasks that we need to do to get the employee set up. Things like setting up their phone, setting up their voicemail, setting up their Outlook, setting up their Office licenses, setting up ConnectWise, Lab Tech, IT Glue, all the other tools that we use. It also includes all the HR things that need to happen. So the HR team keeps a task of everything they need to do to get them set up so they'll be able to collect their paycheck on the first pay period after they start. So I encourage you to use some sort of template for that. And if you listen to the end, I'm going to make an offer where I'll share my template with you. We also assign a buddy to the new hire. So that buddy is someone in our company, typically an A player, that we can use as a informal friend for this new employee. And we try to get the buddy to reach out to them prior to their start date, give them contact information, and really just provide a shoulder for someone in the company where the new employee doesn't have to feel like they're always going to the boss or asking someone in authority. It's just another coworker. You might even think about paying the buddy to do that, but sometimes just a half day off or something like that can be a good incentive for that. We also try to arrange a Friday afternoon visit before the start date so the person can come in the afternoon, get introduced to everyone in a very non-threatening way, spend 5 or 10 minutes in the office, and then on the first day of their start date, they have a little bit warmer feeling when they come in. So that's a good idea if you can do that. We set up the Outlook contact lists so that they already have some of the helpful aliases that we use. For example, we have a dev team alias, we have a service team alias, we have a help desk alias, we have a all staff alias, etc. Set all those up in the directory for the new employees so they have that, as well as any phone numbers they might need. This would include cell phone numbers, answering service, anything that they might need as they get started. We also add them to all of our recurring meetings. So we use the concept of huddles and weekly meetings. So we add those huddles and weekly meetings to their calendar. So it's already set up when they get into the office. If we have to order any swag or any uniforms for the employee, we order them, get them set up so they're sitting on their desk on their first day of work. We deal with insurance for our vehicles. We make sure the employee's listed on our insurance policy so they're able to drive a company vehicle. And we schedule onboarding meetings with the team members. Now, what I mean by this is we spread the load of onboarding the employees to our team members. It does a couple things. One, it spreads the load. And two, it lets the new employee meet with almost everyone on the team. Typically, these meetings will be like how to create a good service ticket or what's the PTO process, how to set up your voicemail. It doesn't have to be anything crazy, but it's just a half an hour type meeting that we schedule for the employee to meet the team members that they're going to work with and build rapport. The other thing we do is print out some helpful information for the new employee. And, people have different feelings on printing things out, but a lot of times when they're new, they want to hold something in their hand. They want to be able to look at something so that they don't feel so self-conscious. So we print out phone lists. We print out our company holiday schedule. We print out employee manuals. We print out all the helpful URLs that we take for granted that the employee won't know. So this would be the URL for your staff page, the URL for your SharePoint site, the URL for Outlook on the web, the URL for your IT Glue if you have one, the URL for QuoteWorks if they're getting involved with QuoteWorks or Quozal. Those types of things. We print them out so the employee has a way to get to them in paper format. We also point them to the company acronyms dictionary. And that's kind of a cool little thing where we explain some of the acronyms that we use that are not industry standard that have been built up over the last 21 years. This is kind of a fun little document that really helps them get ingrained in the culture. It's crazy how many acronyms we use in our business. MRR, NRR, ORR. Even our company name is an acronym, PICS. It stands for Professional Implementation Consulting Services. We go by PICS, but we had the name because I had the domain name way back in the 90s. And I thought, well, let's form a company name around this domain name. Fourletter.com domain name was pretty hard to come by when we started the company in 1995. So make sure you indoctrinate your new employees onto the acronyms that you use within your company. That's kind of the task that we do before the employee starts. But I want to give you some tips too on that, kind of awkward period. It's usually 2 weeks after the employee accepts the agreement. After the employee accepts the offer letter, but before they start. The first tip is definitely avoid radio silence. Don't just go silent for that 2 weeks. A lot can happen. The previous employer can come back with a counteroffer that's sweeter than yours. The employee can continue to interview and actually might find a job that's more attractive to him. So make sure you keep in touch. Make sure you're building that relationship and rapport with the new employee before they even start. Another thing you want to think about during that 2-week period is your first impression with the employee. First impressions really do count, and you need to kind of put your money where your mouth is. If you can afford it, and if it's in the budget, think about getting new equipment for the employee. Don't give them a hand-me-down. Give them something brand new. There's nothing better than the employee walking in and seeing a new laptop in the box or, brand new phone with the plastic still on it. All of that kind of stuff really goes a long way to let them think that you've invested in them. So think about that. If you can, get new equipment. You want to make sure you also add them to the staff or the, all hands type email alias. This is important for a couple reasons. One, they'll start to see communications that go on throughout your company. But two, and more importantly, they'll get to see the welcome email message that you're going to send out to welcome them to the team. And everyone that's on the all hands email can reply back to the new employees and welcome them to the company. They'll get to see all those replies. So that's a really good thing to do. The other thing you want to do, if you have any digital signage or even one of those old school black and white welcome boards, put their name on the welcome board. So when they walk in the door on their first day, they see their name. It's really, really important to make them feel welcome and warm. And then the last thing I like to do during that 2-week period is I like to get any and all of their online coursework set up so that they can start training at home or in the evenings. They can get familiar with ConnectWise. They can get familiar with LabTech or AutoTask, whatever you use. These are really, really important tools in our business. And if we can get them working on it ahead of time, all the better for us. So before they start, get all that stuff in order. Get your house in order so that on day one, they're ready to walk in the door and really be impressed with what you've set up for them. So that brings us to day one. On day one, you want to make sure that the workspace for the new employee is ready to go and it's, squeaky clean. Everything should be set out in order. The new laptop or desktop set up, the screen turned on, sitting in a welcome screen, the phone's ready to go, the extension's assigned, the user's name is assigned to the phone. However you do your technology, you want to make sure it's all set up for them. And if possible, on the first day of the employment, you want to schedule a team lunch. If the person's starting in the service team, see if you can get the service team together for a team lunch. Doesn't have to be out of the building, but the goal is to get everyone in the same room, talking and having a good time together. Start to build that teamwork right on day one. You also want to make sure that on the first day you're there before them and you're able to walk them through the office and introduce them to people. Now, some people like to get a real early start on day one, and that's fine as long as the rest of your staff is there. But if your staff comes in at 9, don't have your new employee come in at 8. You want them to see a full office. You want to see everything working and operating. They want to walk into an office that looks like it's vibrant and happy. Speaking of office, if the employee works remotely, I still encourage you to bring them into the office. It's real important to build the team face to face. You need to get these guys looking at each other in the eye, even if it's only for one day. They'll have a face, they'll have a memory, they'll be a lot more willing to help out a new team member if they've looked them in the eye. So when the new employee comes in on day one, you want to make sure that you have the bulk of their day planned. I usually strive for 80%. So I like to get 80% of their time allocated on day one, and 20% of it can be left loose. What you don't want is the person sitting at their desk getting bored and floundering on the very first day. It's not a good first impression. So have things scheduled for them to do. Either the onboarding meetings that we talked about with the team members where they're going through small bite-sized lessons and nuggets, or perhaps the online training that you've assigned to them for ConnectWise, LabTech, Autotask, TigerPaw, whatever. Get them scheduled. Make sure they have headphones. Make sure they're ready to go. You also want to make sure that you have their passwords and all the accounts written down for them. You strive for uniformity there. You want to have the usernames and passwords be the same. The initial password be set up so that it has to be changed on the first login, but that's not always possible. Sometimes you need to take a different format for the username, and you want to make sure they understand that and know where to put the correct username in. So some tips for you. Don't forget to smile, right? It's really important that you smile when you're talking to your new employee. Keep the attitude upbeat and put a smile on your face. Also, remember to slow down. Everything you know about your company and the service you provide, you didn't learn it in a day. Neither will they. So just slow down a little bit. Even slow down your talking, your speech, so that you're able to communicate well with the new employee and they're able to take it in. On the same token, don't forget to listen. You don't have to talk the whole time. Just listen. Let the employee speak to you. Let them share personal experiences. They're going to be nervous. No matter if they're a seasoned professional or a young kid out of college, they're going to be nervous because it's a new job. It's a new team. It's a new boss. Make sure you listen and let them talk. If possible, you want to bring them into the office, as I talked about, even if they're a remote employee. And when you do that, if it's just a one-day event where the remote employee is going to be in the office for one day, then you want to make sure you have your A players working with them. You don't want anyone that's going to give a bad impression to work with the new employee. Only the cream of the crop, only your best A players. And you can't really tell your employees to do this, but you can certainly do it. Make sure you share something personal with the new employee. Let them know that you're a human being just like them. You had a first day on the job just like them. And, give them a little insight into your personal life. Doesn't have to get too crazy, but just something that lets them know that you want to build a relationship with them. Not just an employer subordinate type relationship, but a human being type relationship. You want them to be part of your team. Our business is one where we have to have everybody understand the importance of what we do, understand the impact we make on our customers and their networks, and be really, really, truly part of the team. So you do this by building a relationship. So day one, you get day one done, you're going to move into the first 30, 60, and 90 days. And I have some tips on that too. By the first 30 days, Your employees should have a grasp of the tools you use. They should be familiar with the culture of your company. They should be able to complete at least one small independent project or be working service tickets or whatever the role is that they're doing. And they should have achieved at least one small goal. So that's what I think about as far as my goal for the new employee. After 30 days, they should be able to do all that. Have a grasp of the tools, be familiar with the company culture, complete at least one small project or be working on service tickets, and achieve one small goal. By the end of 60 days, I want them to have completed a bigger project and hopefully they've done it independently. If they're not a project type employee, if they work in finance or in the service department, then they should be able to do their job pretty well by 60 days with little or no supervision. They should be able to take on some longer term responsibilities. What I mean by this is by 60 days, they should be responsible for whatever metrics you're measuring the position on. So if it's finance, it might be, collection calls made a day. If it's service, it might be tickets closed a day. If it's a VCIO, it might be activities with your customers by the day. Either way, by the end of 60 days, they should be accountable for metrics. They also should be fully engaged with your company rhythms at this time. By 60 days, they should be involved in the huddles, the weekly meetings, any monthly trainings, anything like that. By the end of 2 months, they should be fully engaged in that. And then by 90 days, they pretty much should have the full responsibility of doing the job as laid out in the job description. This is sink or swim time. In our company, we use a 90-day probation period. So if you don't have the job pretty well figured out by 90 days, maybe it's time that we rethink the hire. So what you need to do during this 30, 60, and 90 days, don't forget to keep it fun, right? Pay really close attention to this when the employees are remote. It's real easy for them to get into a slump, especially in the very beginning when they don't really know what they're doing. If they're not having constant communication with you or the team that they're working on, we do this with huddles. So every day, whether you're a local or a remote employee, you're participating in a huddle. So at least you're talking to your team members once a day. You want to lay out goals for them. There should be daily, weekly, and 90-day goals that you lay out for them. Remember, this is their probation period, and this is your chance to, not feel bad if you have to terminate them. If they're not living up to the expectations of the job and what they sold you in the interview, you need to fail fast and you need to move on. You want to check in with them daily, or at least have someone check in with them daily and assess their goal progression. How they making out with that. That's hard to do daily, but I encourage you to try to do it daily. If not, definitely do it weekly. How are they making out with the goals that you've assigned for the 90-day period? And this one is really important. Really stay on top of them and force them to use your systems in the way that you want them to do. Oftentimes we have new employees come in, whether they're in sales or in service, and they're not really used to using ConnectWise or any kind of PSA or CRM. So they just tell you what they did, but they don't document anything in the system. Big no-no. Nip it in the bud right away. Force them to use your systems. Start building habits. I think it takes 21 days to build a habit. Get them using your system every day until it's second nature. You also want to make note of their promptness or their tardiness during this 90-day period. Make sure they're coming to work on time. Make sure they're living up to their end of the bargain for employment. If they're not, make a note of it. These are all things you can use during your 90-day review to either change the behavior or use as a basis for termination. And by all means, you want to start the baptism by fire during this 90-day period. You really need to let them get on the phone, let them start making sales calls, let them make mistakes during their first 90-day period to see if they're going to learn and adapt and grow from them. Everyone makes mistakes and everyone is new at some point, and that's fine. But if they don't want to try, if they're not trying to make themselves better, you want to know this in the first 90 days. The last thing I want you to do during that 90-day period is schedule the 90-day review. This is a key part of this probation period. This is where you need to make the tough decisions. If you've made a great hire, make sure you continually reward them. But if you've made a bad hire, then I encourage you to invite them to be successful somewhere else. They're not going to get better if they're not making an effort in the first 90 days. you've made a hiring mistake. Nip it in the bud, fail fast. So that's my tips for onboarding a new employee and what you should do in the first 90 days. I hope you found this 3-part series on hiring helpful. What I'm going to do is combine all the good bits from episode 9, 10, and 11, along with my job descriptions, job advertisements, an offer letter sample, and an onboarding template into a guidebook. And I'm going to make that available to any member of the IT Provider Network mailing list. So if you're not on the mailing list, go to the website at www.itprovidernetwork.com and sign up. As soon as I've compiled the new guidebook, I'm going to send it out to everyone on the mailing list. As always, I thank you for your time. I know it's valuable, and I know that you're all looking to build, grow, and scale your business. I hope that you found this content useful and you continue to listen. I would appreciate if you would subscribe and share the podcast with any of your peers. Thanks, and have a great day.
Thank you for joining us, and we hope you've been inspired. Check us out on social media via @ITProviderNet and visit us at www.itprovidernetwork.com for past episodes, show notes, videos, and more. And we hope you'll join Terry next time on the IT Provider Network.